Hey everyone, welcome back to Alfred's Basic Adult Piano Course, Lesson Book Level 1. This video is Lesson 42, covering page 47 in our book, the song The Gift to Be Simple. The new thing you're going to be learning in this piece, the new technique, is combining the middle C position and the C position. So I think I had mentioned before in a previous video or videos that these hand positions aren't really a thing when it comes down to it, when it comes down to playing the piano. It's basically a tool to help you be organized in the beginning. So you just concentrate on small areas on the piano and not overwhelmed by all the keys. But we're slowly starting to build our way out of that. And it's not that it's never going to be used in the future. Like, you could come across a very difficult piece one day and there might be maybe a small section of that piece where you're briefly in the C position. And I certainly use that to my advantage. But just know that these positions are slowly going to be fading away. So this is kind of the beginning of that today. We're combining two positions and we're going to be doing some more movement here. So the way this piece is structured is it's a little bit of back and forth between right hand, left hand. Sometimes they play together. And there's certainly some movement in the left hand between positions. So the entire piece, the right hand is in the C position, or if you want to even say middle C position, the right hand was right here for both of those positions, meaning the thumb's on middle C. Now your left hand is going to be doing two positions on this piece. You have the C position, which was the very first position we used in this book, and that was an octave lower with your pinky on C. Of course, D, E, F, and G. You also had the middle C position, which, unlike the right hand, the left hand was actually in a different place, and that put the thumb also in middle C. And if you remember when we did that in the past, we said, well, whatever hand is playing C in the moment, the other thumb, the other hand, should be maybe slightly above it. If they're both on the key at the same time, that's going to be troubling. So there was a little bit of switching with the thumbs in that position. So again, your right hand is going to be using either the C position or the middle C position. Now, if you look in the music at the bass clef, they have done a good job here of noting in red when and where your left hand will move. So in the very beginning of the piece in the bass clef, you see that that note is a G, and that's the fourth finger right here. And the next note is a thumb on middle C. So those two notes tell us right now that we are in the middle C position for our left hand when we start this piece. So there's our G and there's our C. Then you have a couple of beats of rest. Move the left hand to the C position. So that means you're going to move your left hand down and specifically to that C chord on the next measure. Now, if the music set didn't have that there and I just kept missing it, I would actually go through and draw like an arrow that connects the middle C on my music, and I would draw an arrow diagonally down all the way to that chord, maybe that bottom C of that chord on the next line. So I can visually see that my left hand is going to be moving down. And I like to go to that C with my fifth finger as the focus, because that pinky leads the hand. So when you jump like that in the left hand, think about the bottom note if you're playing a chord, because it's that pinky that leads the rest of the hand. If you miss the pinky, you're probably going to miss everything else as well. Okay? So once you're there on that chord, if you look on the second line, you're just going to an F chord, okay, which is right there, C, F, and A. Then the next measure on the second line, return the left hand to the middle C position. So don't even think about the notes, just get your hand right here again with your thumb on middle C. So if you're moving up, follow the thumb. Now don't stay locked in this position from this chord. You have to readjust your fingers to the 5 fingers on the 5 notes. But once you're there, you're good to go, because the first note you play on the second line, second measure, it's a weird entrance. It comes in on the and of beat 2. You see that? It's actually the 4th, 8th note of that measure. It's a B. Now we'll talk a little bit about why it kind of looks a little weird there. But that B is your first note. second finger, and then 4 on G, and of course stay there, 4 on G. The third line, middle C, well, you know that's going to be the thumb. And then the last movement, move the left hand to the C position. Well, that's the same thing you did on the first line. You were up here on middle C, follow your pinky finger down to that C, and you're going to go to the C chord. And you're going to stay there for the rest of the piece. So the fourth line is the F chord on the first measure, the G7, and then the last measure is the C chord, the F chord, and the C chord. Now I'm going to combine both hands now. I'm just going to go through the notes. No counting, none of that yet, just the notes. So the left hand starts with 4 on G. Remember, this is the middle C position, and then thumb on middle C. So if my thumb and the left hand's on middle C, my right hand thumb's going to be out of the way. But look at beat 2. Then the right hand thumb comes on in, so you got to do a switch. And you got to do it in time. You don't want to sacrifice the steady count. Okay, so now I've got all these eighth notes in the right hand. So middle C, D, E, back down to middle C, back up to E, F. Now the next measure, I'm going to finish it up with G. But remember, during all those eighth notes, I'm moving my hand down. So where do you exactly move your hand down? Well, if you get good enough, you can be moving it while you play the notes. But for a beginner, that is not easy. So you may designate a note of the right hand where you want to move your left hand down. Now, if you wait to the very last moment, again, if you're really good, it's not a problem. But if you wait to the very last moment, you might do that, and then there's hesitation. So you could move it maybe there on beat 3. You could maybe move it on beat 4. But I would recommend moving it before the end of the measure, because then it might be too late. So that would be my advice right now. Pick a note and pick a beat, maybe like beat 3, beat 4. I wouldn't do it like on the and of the beat. I would do it on the strong part. It just helps the coordination. On a strong beat, you know, move your left hand. So that's my recommendation. You might have to experiment with it. It could be beat 2, beat 3, or beat 4 of the right hand. But again, I wouldn't wait till the very next measure to move. All right, so here we are on the last measure of the first line. Then the right hand continues on G, F, E. Now the right hand continues without the left hand. We have a rest. D, C, and now both hands, D in the right hand on the second line, F chord left hand. D again, D a third time, middle C. Now here's where it gets confusing on this next measure. There are no rests written in the left hand. I actually went through and wrote a quarter rest in the left hand on beat 1, followed by an eighth rest in the left hand on beat 2. Because here's what's technically happening. Here's what you're technically playing on the second measure, second line. The first note is the D with the right hand. The next note is E with the right hand. The next eighth note is D, and then it's beamed on down into the bass clef. So that does mean that your bass clef is going to hit that B. Okay. The reason for the beam is really just to say, look, these two eighth notes are on beats 2 and. But it looks different because it's being shared between two clefs. So that's not really uncommon, but it is, it does look a little different because this is the first time you're seeing it. But again, what's confusing is it's that technically your left hand isn't playing on the first 3 notes of that measure. Only the right hand's playing. 1 and 2 and. So again, I went in and wrote a quarter rest on beats 1 and an eighth rest on beat 2. And then my left hand comes in on the and of beat 2 on that B. So just know for that measure, it's right hand, and then left hand, and then the left hand continues. The other thing is we return to the middle C position there. So in the previous measure, you're here, and then we rest. Now during that rest, I could be moving my hand, but if you're not coordinated, you might want to move it on beat 2 to that B, and then you're ready for the B. You don't want to be down here and then try to go. Even if I could make it in time, I'd be moving so fast that it would sound choppy or loud, or offbeat because I'm trying to rush. So again, try to set up a note ahead of time that you move to. So here we are on beat 3 in the left hand, G. Beat 4 is the G. On the third line, middle C. Now switch it out on beat 2 for the C with the right hand. And this is just like the beginning all over again. The same notes, same rhythms. The left hand moves to the C position, maybe right there. So I'm already in place for my next measure. Again, this is all the same thing that you played on the first line. So on beat 4, rest, right hand only plays. Now the fourth line starts out the same as the second line, D in the right hand, the F chord in the left hand on beats 1 and 2. Here it's different. Beat 3, G7 chord in the left hand, E, third finger in the right hand. Back to D in the right hand on beat 4, and this measure is also different. C chord with middle C in the right hand. Stay on middle C in the right hand for the rest of the measure, but beat 2, you go to an F chord. And then beat 3, finish it up back to the C chord. So the work that you're going to have to do in this piece, the big work, is these movements in the left hand. You can start out by just practicing the first movement, middle C at the top line to that C chord. I would practice this jump over and over. If you really want to get good at it, practice it with your eyes closed. Now you might be saying, how in the world do I do that? Remember, the piano is excellent when it comes to feel. How do I find this C chord? These two black keys help immensely. If I'm here and my eyes are closed and I jump down and I feel these two black, whoops, didn't work. Let me try that again. All right, I had my eyes closed and I was really trying. Take your time with it though. You've got 3, we got 3 right here. So my eyes are closed and I'm feeling these 3. There's this gap here too, these 2 white keys. But then here are these 2 black keys. And I know that middle C is to the left of the 2. I know that E is right here to the right of the 2. And then I know that the 3 black keys here, G is in between these 2. So again, going from middle C, try to keep your eyes closed and see if you can just feel. Actually, for me, it's all about getting that third finger on that black key. And then I just slide it down and everything else falls into play. May not be that way for you, but it's certainly something to try. Now, if you can't get it perfectly memorized, don't worry about it. The truth is, when you come back to look at the music, it's actually already going to be that much easier because you've pushed the boundary even further. You've made it more difficult than what it actually is. So always keep that in mind too. If something's hard, when you're learning it, find a way to make it harder. Then when you come back to it, it's also like a psychological thing. It's like, okay, that's not so bad after all. So you're going to work on those hand positions. And the second line, going from the F chord up to the C position, specifically, it's going to be 2 on B that you play. So not only you're moving to the position, but you got to be ready there. And the third position is just like the beginning again. So really you're learning only two moves, this one and this one. So get those down really well. And like I said, I just encourage you to put the hands together. There's so much back and forth between each hand. It just kind of makes more sense when it's all put together. With the counting, we're in 4/4 time. We have eighth notes again, a lot of eighth notes. They're all in the right hand. So your counting, of course, is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Notice there's a pickup note in the left hand. So that's on beat 4. 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and etc. I had my right hand in my lap when I started playing. Don't do that. Have both hands up here ready to go. Have your left hand thumb engaged because it plays first. Have your right hand thumb on standby. The other thing is dynamics. It starts out quiet, soft, but look at the crescendo. All those eighth notes in the right hand. And then when you get there, it's great that it's loud because both hands play and come in strong. So that'll help you get the hands together right there. Stay strong until you get to the end of the second line. Then we die off. And then at the third line, we grow again, just like the first line. And then you're strong. When you get to the bottom line, it says second time retardando. Retardando, at the very bottom, says means gradually slowing. So every note you play gets a little bit slower. So if you're counting, it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and it's kind of up to you how much you slow down, but you definitely want it to be very clear that you're slowing down, and you don't want to wait the last moment either. So wherever it's marked, right there on that first measure of that bottom line, that's technically where you begin slowing down. Now, don't slow down too soon. You don't want to completely die out before you get to the end. So something like this. And then we have a fermata. So you're just going to hang on that last little bit. Now, it says second time retardando. There's a repeat sign. So we're going to repeat this piece. We're going to play through it twice. On your second time playing it through, that's when you gradually slow down. So the first time, you're just going right through it. You can hold the fermata, that's okay, and then repeat. I just noticed something. When you repeat, there's one more hand position. You're going from the C chord at the end to the G, middle C position in that left hand. Okay, so that they did not mark. So we do have one more jump. But here's the cool thing about it. When I play the C chord, what note am I already playing? A G. So I'm going to focus on the fact that my thumb's on G, and I'm going to take that fourth finger and aim for that G. But I'm also aiming for the whole position too, because I got to have my thumb ready to go on middle C. So, but it's that fourth finger that's specifically going to be engaged. So yes, lead with the thumb, but also focus on 4, that it's coming off of this G and that 4 is going on that G. Okay. Let's see, anything else? I think that covers it all. So I'll play it through for you all the way through. And I didn't play all with the counting yet, so let me do that. Let's do it slowly, both hands with the counting. Give a count off. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 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 2 and 3. Now when you get to 3, I just stop counting and just hold it for a little bit. And like I said, my right hand's not going to switch positions. It's going to stay right here when I repeat, but the left hand is. Now you got the end of the song, so it's okay to have a little bit of a break. Because of that fermata, typically it's okay to have a little bit of a break after a fermata. If that fermata wasn't there, then you'd have to be ready for that move right away. But it does give you just a bit of time to move, but not much, because you don't want the audience to think, oh, that song's over. No, you got to be prepared to still move, because they're going to start clapping if you're playing for them, and you're like, no, I'm not done. So you play it through the second time through the same way. When you get to the bottom, remember retardando. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, and then really hold it out. Let it fade away a little bit. So the crescendos, first line, second line, first line, third line, right hand. The diminuendos, so mostly in the right hand on the second line. Both hands play into the diminuendo on the last measure. All right, so that covers the gift to be simple. Some important things to remember. The hand position movements in the left hand. That's what you really want to work on, going from the C position to the middle C position. That's going to take some work. The counting, of course, still counting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Again, like I said in the previous video, that is the glue. You can practice hands separate. If you do, I would only focus on the notes. It's back and forth so much. I wouldn't even focus on the rhythms and the counting to really put the hands together. I don't think there's too many places you're going to have too much difficulty putting the hands together. It's not very complicated when the hands play at the same time. And then lastly, your dynamics. You know, crescendos and diminuendos will make the piece that much more enlightening. And then retardando, which you've learned here for the first time, gradually slowing down on the second time through. The first time through, keep that steady tempo. And that covers it also. I wish you the best on this piece. As always, if you have questions or comments, please leave them in the section below. And I'll get back to you ASAP. See you in the next video.